The engine is purring along. Then, without a warning light or a single sound, everything just stops. For Mustang owners, what is supposed to be routine turns into a costly mystery. Instant engine failure. No explanation. No chance to react. Mechanics blame bad luck, and owners blame themselves. Dozens of drivers tell the same story, and the real cause is hiding where nobody looks. By the end, you will know how to spot it before your Mustang becomes another silent casualty. One owner said, "I changed the oil myself just like always." The car started up fine and sounded normal. Then, halfway down the block, it just died. No warning light, no limp mode, just silence. Another owner said, "My Mustang was running perfectly. I had just had it serviced. I was cruising at 40, and then suddenly it was like someone hit a mute button. No sputter, no check engine light, just total silence. The dealer told me it was bad luck." A third owner said, "I heard a faint ticking after a cold start, but I figured it was nothing. 2 days later, the engine seized in the middle of traffic. They told me I probably skipped an oil change, but I have every receipt." Across forums and repair shops, the stories echo each other. Owners describe regular maintenance, careful driving, and engines that felt strong until the moment they did not. Some catch a strange noise or a faint smell, but most remember nothing out of the ordinary. One minute the car is pulling hard and smooth. The next it is coasting to a stop, powerless. Mechanics point to missed service or hard driving. Friends suggest maybe it was pushed too far. But the pattern keeps repeating. Different years, different engines, the same sudden silence. It was like flipping a switch, and then nothing. A few try to piece together clues, a ticking that was not there last week, a whiff of burnt oil on a cold morning, a reservoir cap that looked off, but even those who spot something cannot connect it to what happens next. Another owner said he thought it was just old gas. It did not even cross his mind that it could be something serious. For many, the first real sign comes not from the car, but from a mechanic's face as they lift the hood. "They told me it was probably my fault. Maybe I missed a service. But I know every mile, every oil change. This does not feel random." 3 owners, 3 different stories, each convinced at first that it was a freak accident, a one-off. But as the stories pile up, the sense of confusion gives way to something else. A quiet, uneasy realization that these failures are not isolated at all. Stories begin to stack up in the forum archives, each one marked by a date, a mileage reading, and the same unsettling twist. Owners from across the country post similar accounts, a car that ran perfectly fine until, suddenly, it did not. A longtime moderator, known for tracking these threads, starts collecting the details. The posts span years, 2015, 2017, 2020, yet the sequence of events rarely changes. Most failures come on the heels of something routine, an oil change, a cold engine start, or the first drive after a long period in the garage. Owners recall the exact moment. 7:20 a.m., engine silent after backing out of the driveway. 3:40 p.m., just left the shop, made it 2 blocks before everything stopped. The moderator begins to plot these moments on a timeline, layering each report over the next. Patterns emerge almost immediately. The incidents do not scatter randomly through the calendar. They cluster tightly around maintenance dates or the first cold snap of the year. In one 7-day stretch, 5 different owners report the same abrupt shutdown, each within days of an oil change. Another surge appears right after temperatures drop for the first time in months. Mileage adds another layer. Some failures strike early, at just 1,800 miles. Others wait until 23,000 miles. But the trigger is not hard driving or aggressive use. Instead, it is the return to normalcy, a new filter, fresh oil, fluids topped off. The moderator's graph fills with color-coded dots, each representing a story that begins with confidence and ends in confusion. No warning lights, no error codes, just a timestamp and a note. Engine died. No reason. As more data arrives, the randomness dissolves. The moderator posts a chart with a simple caption. "If you think you are the only one, look at this." The clusters are unmistakable. Owners from different states, different years, all describing the same sudden silence. It is not a string of bad luck or a series of missed oil changes. The numbers point to something systematic, mechanical, and invisible to the naked eye. The community, once a collection of isolated voices, begins to see itself reflected in the data. The question shifts. Owners stop asking what they did wrong. They start to wonder why this keeps happening in the same way, every time. The moderator's timeline becomes a kind of mirror, reflecting not just individual frustration, but a collective realization. The evidence is no longer anecdotal. It is a pattern, mapped out in dates and mileages, pointing to a failure that is anything but random. The need for answers grows, as the community waits for someone to explain what the numbers already suggest. In a quiet workshop, a powertrain engineer steadies a Mustang oil cooler under a macro lens, the part clamped open to reveal its inner channels. The surface looks clean, almost untouched, until the camera's focus sharpens on a seam running along the cooler's core. Here, an invisible flaw begins to take shape, a hairline crack so fine it escapes even practiced eyes during routine service. Under magnification, the edges of the crack show the telltale signs of metallurgical fatigue, a faint branching pattern where metal has slowly surrendered to years of vibration, heat cycles, and internal pressure. The engineer traces the path with a pointer, explaining how this seam, pressed and sealed at the factory, carries both engine oil and coolant in close proximity. When the crack forms, it becomes a hidden breach. Oil and coolant, meant to be kept apart, now have a pathway to mix. The crossover does not announce itself. There is no sudden spray, no puddle on the floor. Instead, a gradual seep begins, microscopic at first, then faster as the crack widens under pressure. The oil, robbed of its purity, starts to cloud. The coolant, now tainted, loses its ability to cool. Inside the engine, bearings and journals depend on a thin film of clean oil to survive. But with coolant entering the oil circuit, the protective layer breaks down. The engineer holds up a sample drawn from a failed engine. What should be amber and clear now resembles a weak chocolate milkshake, swirling with suspended particles. This is the first visible proof, a mixture that signals the beginning of the end, though most owners never see it before catastrophe strikes. The demonstration continues as the engineer flexes the failed cooler, showing how the crack grows with each heat cycle. Unlike a blown hose or a failed gasket, this breach does not trigger a sensor or a warning light. The engine management system reads normal values until the very last moments. Only a teardown, or a macro lens, makes the flaw visible. Without intervention, the process accelerates. Coolant displaces oil at the bearings, friction rises, and within seconds of true crossover, the engine's fate is sealed. What begins as a flaw measured in fractions of a millimeter sets off a chain reaction that wipes out the heart of the car, all hidden behind a seam no one was ever meant to see. A master technician stands over a bench scattered with engine parts, gloved hands moving with practiced precision. He holds up a crankshaft journal, its surface scored and discolored. The diagnosis is blunt. This engine lasted less than 3 minutes from the first sign of trouble to total mechanical seizure. He flips through a stack of invoices, each stamped with times, dates, and mileage. One invoice says 7:22 a.m. Customer reports a ticking noise. Another says 7:25 a.m. Engine locked during a test drive. One reads 3:44 p.m. Oil change completed. 3:45 p.m. Catastrophic failure on return. The pattern repeats with chilling consistency. Once coolant enters the oil, the bearings lose their protective film. Metal grinds against metal. Friction skyrockets. The technician points to a bearing shell, now blackened and fused to its cap. This is the aftermath of coolant-laden oil, lubrication gone, heat unchecked, surfaces welding together in seconds. He describes the sequence like a stopwatch. In the first 30 seconds, the oil thins and pressure drops. By the first minute, the bearings begin to overheat. At 2 minutes, the crankshaft journals are scored. By 3 minutes, the engine is beyond saving. No warning lights, no limp mode, just a brief ticking or a faint change in idle if anything at all, before the silence. The technician's logbook tells the same story across multiple cars, years apart. Each time, the damage is total. Replacement costs run into the thousands, and yet the trigger is always the same: a hidden breach, a moment of mixing, and a countdown that offers no second chance. He lays out the failed components: bearing shells warped, crankshaft scored, oil filter clogged with metallic debris. There is no gradual decline, no lingering death rattle. The interval between first contamination and irreversible damage is measured in minutes, sometimes less. Owners who shut off their engines at the first hint of trouble still face a coin toss. Those who keep driving rarely make it more than a mile. The technician closes the logbook, his verdict clear. When this failure begins, the race against time is already lost. A former dealer service manager remembers the morning routine. The phone rings, another Mustang owner on the line, the engine gone silent after a routine oil change. The service advisor pulls up the claim, scans the warranty terms, and starts a scripted response. He says this looks like an isolated incident. He says probably normal wear. He says these things happen. The words are chosen carefully. They are not admissions. They are phrases that close the door on further questions. Behind the counter, the process is familiar. Warranty policies are written with gaps, gray areas that let responsibility slip through. If there is no clear manufacturing defect, the cost often shifts back to the owner. The paperwork lists every oil change and service, but unless the failure fits a narrow definition, coverage can be denied. The owner is left with a bill for an engine that failed without warning, told it was just bad luck or a matter of maintenance. The manager remembers meetings where patterns were discussed in private but never acknowledged in writing. He explains if the same model comes in twice with the same issue, you call it coincidence. 3 times, you say it is rare. 4, you still call it normal wear. There is no system for tracking patterns unless the manufacturer instructs you to look. Dealers rely on language that sounds reassuring but avoids commitment. They use isolated incident, normal wear, and out of warranty. Each phrase is a shield, protecting the dealership from liability and preserving the manufacturer's reputation. Owners who push back are handed a stack of paperwork and a polite smile. Most pay out of pocket, convinced they missed something, or that their case is the exception. Independent mechanics see the pattern more clearly. Without the filter of warranty policy, the same failures appear again and again. But without the authority to report them collectively, their observations remain scattered. The result is underreporting, hundreds of cases, each labeled as unique, each owner left alone with the cost. A right to reply is always offered, but rarely changes the outcome. The language stays the same, the burden quietly shifts. For many Mustang owners, the real failure comes not from a part, but from a system designed to keep problems invisible until they are too expensive to ignore. A master technician stands by a well-used Mustang, sleeves rolled, ready to walk through the one check every owner can do. No tools, no ramps, no special skills. He starts with a cold engine, because that is when early warning signs show up most clearly. The hood comes up, and his hand goes straight to the coolant reservoir. Even before twisting the cap, he points out what to look for: the color and clarity of the coolant. Healthy coolant is clear, with a hint of color, green, orange, or yellow depending on the model. But if the surface looks cloudy, or if there is a film that clings to the sides, that is the first red flag. Sometimes the liquid takes on a pale chocolatey tone, a sign that oil has crossed over. He tilts the bottle in the light, showing how even a faint swirl or streak means trouble is brewing. Next, he listens. With the engine still cold, he asks for silence. A faint ticking from the lower engine, especially on startup, is another subtle clue. Not every tick means disaster, but when it is new, sharper than before, or paired with a rough idle, it is worth paying attention. He explains these sounds often come before any dashboard warning or check engine light. The ticking can last only a minute before fading as the engine warms, making it easy to miss. He reminds owners that these checks cost nothing, just a few minutes and a careful ear. Compared to the price of a new oil cooler, which runs a few $100s, or an engine replacement that can top $10,000, the value is obvious. A cloudy reservoir or a new ticking sound after routine maintenance should never be ignored. Catching these signs early makes the difference between a quick repair and a total loss. The technician's advice is simple. Check the coolant every month, especially after an oil change or the first cold start of the season. Listen for new sounds at startup. If anything feels off, do not wait. A 5-minute inspection can save a Mustang from the silent failure that wipes engines without warning. Today, thousands of Mustangs still run with no obvious symptoms, while the risk of silent oil cooler failure remains largely unaddressed by manufacturers. As more owners rely on technology for warnings, this flaw proves that not every threat is visible or acknowledged. For every enthusiast, vigilance matters more than reassurance. The next breakdown could already be in motion. Share your experience below if you've faced a sudden engine failure.